Cam Thomas has been dominant as a scorer at the beginning of the season, and for that reason alone, we think the Brooklyn Nets may have a potential new superstar on their hands. Here's why. It honestly shouldn't be that surprising that Cam Thomas has had several huge games over the past 2 seasons. Back in college, where he played for the LSU Tigers, he led all freshmen in scoring with 23 points per game. The kid had future NBA bucket getter written all over him before he even stepped foot in the league. Most guys at the Division I college level are elite shot makers, but Thomas was just on a whole other level. The way he was able to get to his spots and hit shots at all types of angles was something you don't see very often, and he's carried that same ability into the NBA. Within the first couple of games this season, he was averaging 36 points per game, obviously an extremely small sample size, but even now he's putting up elite numbers with ease. On October 25th versus the Cleveland Cavaliers, he dropped 36 points in just 25 minutes. Keep in mind that the Cavs were the best defense in the NBA last season, and he made them look like the worst defense in the NBA. And it wasn't like he was just pulling it up from half court, avoiding the Cavs' interior defense. He was breaking down their best defenders and getting inside the paint and simply rising up over them in the mid-range, or playing bully ball and putting it in their chest. He isn't shooting the best percentages from 3 yet, but I wouldn't worry about all that, because he shot 38% last season, although it was on a low volume, 2 attempts. But still, that 3 doesn't matter as much when you're as good and efficient as he is in the mid-range and at the rim. And plus, I don't care what percentage he's shooting from 3, no player on the opposing team would be foolish enough to leave someone like him open, because Thomas is a natural scorer. Once he sees one shot fall, it's going to be a long night for that defense. His handles have improved as well, and they are only getting better. He's made it a living hell for centers who are unlucky enough to switch onto him. He has a nice change of speed and pace he uses to create separation, but just like all of the best scorers in the NBA, he's simply no contest once he gets to his spot. And from what I've seen, it appears he shoots better with a hand in his face. Like I mentioned from his LSU days, the shots he was making were just jaw-dropping. It just isn't normal to be constantly making high-arching shots over guys 6+ inches taller than you, while fading back in one direction. To give you a little more context on how elite of a scorer he's been, he's the second youngest player ever, behind Shaquille O'Neal, to score 30+ in his team's first 3 games. He also set the record for the most points off the bench on opening night in NBA history. The kid is already breaking records. But let's slow down for a second, because I'm not saying he's going to be averaging 30+ for the entire season, nor am I trying to say he's an all-time great. But if you don't think that he has all-star potential at the very least, then I honestly don't know what to tell you. Nets head coach Jacques Vaughn is really impressed thus far. I think he's enjoying competing on both ends of the floor, and that part of it, I think he is gaining an extreme amount of trust with his teammates. We know he has the ability to score the basketball, but it's not forced. It's within the flow of our offense, which you see. And then at certain times we need him to get a bucket, then he's capable of doing that also. So he's learning how to survey the game a little bit when he's needed, when he's a facilitator, when he's getting to the paint for us, which he's done at a high level also. And that last part is crucial for his development and future success. If he can become a threat as a passer and facilitator, then that's going to open up everything for him as a scorer. He doesn't need to ever be an elite passer or anything like that. However, if he can get to around Devin Booker's level of facilitating and playmaking ability, it would be a game changer for sure. No one's ever labeled Devin Booker as a great passer or initiator of an offense, yet he's already averaged over 5 assists per game several times in his career, and that's mainly due to his ability to read the floor, draw in defenders with his rim pressure, and simply kicking it out or dumping it down to a teammate. He keeps it simple, and simplicity is key. In the 57 games he played last season, Thomas averaged 1.4 assists per game in 16 minutes, but he also averaged 1.1 turnovers per game, so that assist-to-turnover ratio wasn't the best. But he's just 22 years old. He has more than enough time to improve here. Now let's address maybe his biggest concern: defense. Last year, his minutes were steadily going down due to his poor defense. He was statistically one of the worst defensive players in all of basketball. He was picked on and hunted out just about every possession. He just wasn't ready to do anything. He couldn't make rotations, didn't know where he needed to be, and some possessions he looked so lost out there that it was hard to watch. With it still being very early in the season, it isn't clear on how bad or good of a defender he'll be just yet. But here's the thing: if he can consistently drop 25 25+ on a nightly basis, then you can live with his below average defense. But if he doesn't average at least 23 to 24 points on elite efficiency, then it'll be interesting to see how his minutes are adjusted. There is a good side to this for him though. He just happens to play on one of the best defensive rosters in the entire NBA, so he doesn't need to worry too much about one-on-one defense. His main focus should be on studying his defensive coverages and assignments, so he won't miss rotations or look lost. Steph Curry has mastered this over the past few seasons. Steph isn't going to lock down anyone, but his value comes from being insanely smart and aware defensively, always communicating, switching, and being 2 steps ahead of the offense. The current star of the team, Mikal Bridges, is an excellent defender, and although his offensive usage went up after being traded from Phoenix, his defense hasn't dropped off much. He's now playing in more of an off-ball role, which is something he already thrived at. He's a tremendous help-side defender who uses that long 7-foot wingspan to deny, deflect, and steal passes in the passing lanes. And the more I think about it, the more I realize he's just a super versatile defender. He's also one of the better screen navigators in the NBA. Then, as we've seen since he first stepped into the league, he's an excellent perimeter defender who can give anyone's favorite player a lot of trouble. Bridges alone can cover up a lot of mistakes. Then, of course, you have Ben Simmons. And while he isn't the Defensive Player of the Year candidate he was 3 years ago, he's not too far from it. And speaking of versatile defenders, Simmons has a strong argument of being top 5 when it comes to that category. I've watched every Nets game this season, and let me tell you, Simmons can flat out defend all 5 positions, with wings and guards being his specialty. His ability to keep his man in front of him and swallow them up whole if they do dare to drive inside is elite. The fact that he and Bridges are on the same defense is insane. And it doesn't stop there though, because they have a top 5 rim protector in Nick Claxton, who very well could have won Defensive Player of the Year last year and will most likely be in the race again this season. He's the best perimeter defender among centers, without question, pointing once again to the team's versatility on this end. Elite rim protectors' main jobs are to erase mistakes made by their perimeter defenders, and saying he does a great job at it is an understatement. Then you have Dorian Finney-Smith, another elite defender. He isn't talked about like the other 3, but he's nearly just as good. My point is, Cam Thomas is in the ideal situation. He doesn't need to be an all-world defender. He just needs to be average, maybe even a little bit below average. Now, if he were on a bad defensive team, then it would be a different story. He just needs to really commit to becoming a smart and more engaged defender. If he can do that, then the sky is truly the limit for him. His development could be the deciding factor in the team's future, as crazy as that sounds. Mikal Bridges, Cameron Johnson, Nick Claxton, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Ben Simmons are great, but none of them have the superstar scoring potential outside of Bridges. And honestly, even Bridges doesn't have the bag and potential of Thomas as a scorer. Until last season, Bridges was just a 3-and-D player, while Thomas came into the league as a give me the ball and move out of my way type of player. Nonetheless, all of them will need to fulfill their roles well if they want to see success. Whether that's as early as this year or next remains to be seen. But what do you think about Cam Thomas? Will he be a star, or all of these big performances just a fluke? Let us know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.